It was February 6th, 2026 at 20:47 a.m. when a restlessness I couldn't name, a holy agitation that felt like fire in my bones, drove me to the Mojiv Desert. And there, surrounded by endless sand dunes that rolled like frozen waves under a canopy of stars, so thick they looked like diamond dust scattered across black velvet, Jesus appeared before me with tears streaming down his face, and spoke words that shattered everything I thought I knew about Lent. Jonathan, they've turned my season of preparation into a season of performance. They've made my 40 days of intimacy into 40 days of religious theater. And this year, this Lent that begins in 12 days, I'm marking certain souls to experience what Lent was always meant to be. You're seeing this message because you're one of them. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it, but you've been marked. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. Drop your prayer requests in the comments right now. I don't care how impossible they seem. I don't care how long you've been waiting. There's something about this encounter, something about what Jesus showed me in that desert, that makes me believe he's about to move in unprecedented ways for those who are willing to enter this holy Lent with him. And if you're a true believer, someone who doesn't just want entertainment, but actually wants transformation, hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to share over these next few nights isn't for the casual scroller. It's for the marked ones, the chosen ones, the desperate ones. Some of you know me as the guy who plays Jesus in The Chosen. You've seen me portray him in front of cameras with scripts and directors and lighting crews. But what happened to me in that desert? What's been happening for 3 consecutive nights now? That wasn't acting. That wasn't a script. That was more real than anything I've ever experienced on any set. More real than any role I've ever inhabited. And I'm risking everything to share it with you, because Jesus told me specifically. Tell them before February 18th. Tell them before Ash Wednesday, because I'm marking souls for a holy Lenten time is running out. Let me take you back to that first night. I couldn't sleep. That's how it started. I'm 51 years old, single, no kids, and I'm used to quiet nights alone in my home. But this was different. This wasn't insomnia. This was a summon. Have you ever felt that? Where it's not that you can't sleep, but that you're being kept awake for a purpose. It felt like invisible hands were pulling me out of bed, like a voice without sound was calling me into the wilderness. At a funny 30 a.m., I got in my car. I didn't plan it. I didn't pack anything. I just drove east out of Los Angeles into the desert. The 10 freeway was nearly empty, just a few long-haul trucks and me. And as the city lights faded behind me and the darkness grew thicker, I felt like Abraham leaving. Like Moses approaching the burning bush, like I was being drawn into a divine appointment. I didn't understand, but couldn't resist. I pulled off onto a dirt road about 90 minutes later. I don't even know what made me turn there. The road wasn't marked, but my hands turned the wheel, and I followed that path for another 20 minutes until it simply ended at the base of a massive dune. I got out of the car, and the silence hit me first. You don't understand silence until you've stood in the desert at 20:47 in the morning. It's not just the absence of noise. It's the presence of something else, something ancient, something waiting. The temperature had dropped to maybe 45 degrees, and I was wearing just jeans and a hoodie, but I barely felt the cold. The air smelled like sage and sand and something else I can't describe. Something clean, something primordial. Above me, the stars were so bright they cast shadows. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light. I could see Mars red and steady. I could see satellites moving slowly across the darkness, and the moon, just a thin crescent, hung low on the horizon like a silver fingernail. I started walking, I don't know why, up the dune, my feet sinking into sand that was still warm from yesterday's sun despite the cold air. With each step, I sank ankle deep, and it took real effort to climb. My breath came harder, my legs burned, and when I reached the top, I stood there looking out over an ocean of dunes that stretched to the horizon in every direction, and I fell to my knees. "Why am I here?" I said out loud. My voice sounded small and strange in all that vastness, and that's when he appeared. I want to be clear about this. I didn't see a vision in my mind. I didn't have a spiritual impression. Jesus was there, physically there, standing 10 feet in front of me. As real as you are real, as solid as the ground beneath my knees. He was wearing simple robes that moved in a wind I couldn't feel. And his face, oh, his face was wet with tears that caught the starlight and gleamed like liquid silver. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice was like thunder and whisper at the same time, like it came from everywhere and nowhere, like it bypassed my ears and spoke directly into my chest. "Do you know what day it is?" "February 6th, I whispered. 12 days until Ash Wednesday," he said. 12 days until millions of people begin Lent. And do you know what they think Lent is? I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. The air around him seemed to shimmer, and the temperature dropped another 10 degrees in an instant. My breath came out in clouds. "They think it's about giving up chocolate," he continued, and his voice broke with grief. "They think it's about fasting from social media. They think it's about proving their discipline, about performing their devotion, about checking a box on their religious calendar. Jonathan, they've turned my 40 days in the wilderness into a self-improvement program." He stepped closer, and I could see his eyes now, brown and deep and full of fire and sorrow. "I didn't go into the wilderness to give up bread, Jonathan. I went to face the enemy. I went to be tempted. I went to be stripped down to nothing so that I could emerge as everything." Lent isn't about what you give up. It's about what you face. It's about what you allow me to expose in you. It's about entering the wilderness with me and letting the desert do its work. The wind picked up suddenly, violently, whipping sand against my face and arms. I raised my hand to shield my eyes, and when I looked again, Jesus was standing at the edge of the dune, looking out over the desert. "Come here," he said. I stumbled to his side, and he pointed out across the landscape. "What do you see, Sand?" I said. "Dunes, darkness. Look closer." And then my vision changed. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like someone adjusted the lens of my eyes, and suddenly I could see things I couldn't see before. The desert was full of people, thousands of them, millions of them, all walking through the sand, all struggling, all alone. And above each person's head was a label glowing like neon in the darkness. The giving up coffee, fasting from Netflix, no sugar for 40 days, reading the Bible more. "These are my people," Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with grief. "These are the ones who will begin Lent in 12 days. Look at them, Jonathan. Look at what they think this season is about." I watched as the people trudged through the sand, their eyes down, their faces set in determination. They were working so hard. They were trying so hard, but they were all alone. Jesus wasn't with them. They were just performing. "No, look at this," he said, and he waved his hand. The scene changed. Now I saw different people in the desert. Fewer of them, much fewer. But these people weren't alone. Jesus was with each one. And these people weren't just walking through the desert. They were being transformed by it. I watched as one woman fell to her knees in the sand weeping. And Jesus knelt beside her and pulled something dark and twisted out of her chest. Some spiritual thing I couldn't name. And she gasped and looked up at him with new eyes. I watched as a man stood at the top of a dune, screaming into the wind, and Jesus stood behind him with his hands on the man's shoulders. And the man's screaming turned to singing. I watched as a young person sat in the sand, surrounded by demons that hissed and clawed. And Jesus spoke one word, and the demons fled, and the young person stood up free. "This is Holy Lent," Jesus said. "This is what I'm calling my marked ones into. Not performance, not discipline for discipline's sake, but transformation, encounter, warfare, intimacy. The wilderness isn't meant to be endured, Jonathan. It's meant to be entered. It's meant to change you." I was weeping now, tears streaming down my face, freezing in the cold air. "Why are you showing me this?" He turned to face me fully, and he placed both hands on my shoulders. His touch was warm, despite the cold solid, despite the supernatural nature of this encounter. "Because you've been marked, Jonathan, you and everyone who sees this message before February 18th. I'm marking souls for a holy Lent, not a religious Lent, not a performative Lent, a holy Lent, a wilderness Lent. A Lent where I strip away everything false and reveal everything true. A Lent where you face your demons with me by your side. A Lent where you emerge transformed, not just disciplined." "But why me?" I asked. "I'm nobody, I'm just an actor. I'm single, I'm 51. I don't have a family. I don't have a platform." Beyond playing me, he interrupted. And there was the hint of a smile in his eyes despite the tears. "Jonathan, You've shown my face to millions. Now I'm asking you to show them my heart. I'm asking you to tell them what real Lent looks like. I'm asking you to warn them that they're running out of time to prepare. The wind died suddenly, completely, and the silence rushed back in. The stars seemed to pulse overhead, and I realized I could hear my own heartbeat loud and fast in my ears. 12 days, Jesus said. They have 12 days to decide. Will they enter a holy Lent with me? Or will they perform a religious Lent without me? Will they let the wilderness transform them? Or will they just try to survive it? Will they face what I want to expose? Or will they hide behind their fasting rules and their Bible reading plans? He stepped back, and the air between us seemed to shimmer again. I'm going to show you more tomorrow night, Jonathan. Come back here, same time. There's more you need to see, more you need to understand. Because this isn't just about Lent. This is about what I'm doing in this season. This is about the souls I'm marking for breakthrough. This is about the army I'm raising up. Wait, I said, reaching out. How will I know what to tell them? How will I know? You'll know, he said. Trust me, you'll know. And then he was gone. Not fading, not disappearing gradually, just gone. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. But the warmth of his hands on my shoulders remained, and the weight of his words pressed into my chest like a stone. I stood there on top of that dune for another hour, maybe longer. I watched as the stars wheeled slowly overhead. I watched as the crescent moon set. I watched as the first hint of dawn began to gray the eastern horizon. And I knew with absolute certainty that everything had changed. When I finally walked back to my car, my legs shaking with exhaustion and cold and the weight of what I'd experienced, I found my phone had no signal. I'd been completely cut off from the world for hours. And somehow that felt right. Somehow that felt like exactly what needed to happen. I'm back home now. It's been 12 hours since that encounter. I haven't slept. I can't sleep because I know I have to go back tonight. I know there's more. And I know that you, yes, you, the one reading this right now, you've been marked too. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. You didn't randomly scroll to this video. You're here because Jesus is calling you into a holy Lent, and you have 12 days to prepare. Tomorrow night, I'll share what happened in the second encounter. It's more intense, more specific, more challenging. But I need you to do something right now. I need you to drop a comment and tell me, are you willing to enter a holy Lent? Not a religious Lent, not a performative Lent, but a real transformative wilderness Lent where Jesus strips away everything false and reveals everything true. Because time is running out. February 18th is coming. Ash Wednesday is coming. And the question isn't whether you'll observe Lent. The question is, what kind of Lent will you observe? I'll see you tomorrow night. Same desert, same time, more revelation. You've been marked. Don't ignore this. I didn't want to go back. And let me be honest with you, and I promised myself I would be nothing but honest through this entire testimony. When the sun set on February 7th, 2026, and that same restlessness began to stir in my chest, that same holy agitation that felt like a summons, part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to stay home, make some tea, watch something mindless on TV, and pretend that what happened in the desert the night before was just exhaustion. Just my imagination. Just the result of spending too many years playing Jesus on screen until the lines between character and reality blurred. But I couldn't because the warmth of his hands on my shoulders hadn't faded. Because his words, they have 12 days to decide, kept echoing in my mind like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. Because I knew deep in that place where you can't lie to yourself that this was real and that I had to go back. At 20:15 a.m., I was in my car again, driving east into the darkness. The desert was different on the second night. Or maybe I was different. The same dirt road, the same massive dune where I'd parked before. But as I got out of the car, the air felt heavier, thicker, charged with something electric. The temperature was colder, maybe 30 ABB, and the wind was already blowing steady and strong from the west, carrying with it the scent of creosote and something else. Something sharp and clean like ozone before a storm. The stars were even brighter than the night before, if that was possible. No moon at all tonight, just pure darkness punctuated by those millions of points of light. And as I stood there beside my car, looking up, I realized I could see shooting stars. Not just one or two, but dozens of them, streaking across the sky in silence, like the heavens themselves were restless. I didn't wait this time. I started walking immediately, not up the same dune, but deeper into the desert, following a pull I couldn't explain. My feet found a path between two large dunes, a valley of sand that wound like a dry riverbed through the landscape. The wind funneled through the space, stronger here, and it made a sound, a low moan that was almost musical, almost like voices singing in a language I didn't understand. I walked for 20 minutes, maybe 30, my phone flashlight barely making a dent in the darkness. The sand beneath my feet was firm here, packed down, and I made good time. My breath came out in clouds. My hands were numb despite being shoved deep in my hoodie pocket. And then as I rounded a bend in this valley, I saw a light ahead. Not flashlight, not headlights. This was different. This was golden and warm, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. And it was coming from a small clearing where the valley opened up into a circular space, surrounded by dunes on all sides, a natural amphitheater carved by wind and time. He was waiting for me there. Jesus stood in the center of this space, and the light was coming from him. Not like a spotlight, not like he was glowing, but like he was the source of warmth in a cold universe, like he was a fire that didn't consume. The sand around his feet was different, darker, richer, like it had been watered even though we were in the driest place on earth. "You came back," he said, and there was approval in his voice. Warmth that cut through the cold air. "I had to," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't understand what's happening, but I had to. Come closer, Jonathan. Sit with me." He lowered himself to the sand, cross-legged, and gestured for me to do the same. I sat across from him, maybe 4 feet away. And the moment I settled into the sand, I felt warmth radiating up from the ground beneath me. Impossible warmth. The wind still howled around us, funneling through the dunes. But in this circular space, it was calm, protected. Last night, I showed you the difference between religious Lent and Holy Lent. Jesus began, his eyes locked on mine. Tonight, I need to show you what Holy Lent actually requires, because you can't call people into something without showing them what it costs. He reached down and scooped up a handful of sand, letting it pour through his fingers in a stream that caught the golden light. The wilderness is where everything false dies, Jonathan. Your false self, your false securities, your false gods, your false comforts. That's why most people avoid it. That's why they turn Lent into a game of giving up chocolate or scrolling less. Because if they actually entered the wilderness with me, really entered it, they'd have to face what's really there. What is really there? I asked. His expression grew serious, and he looked past me out into the darkness beyond our circle of light. Demons, lies, addictions, wounds, shame, pride, all the things they've been running from, all the things they've been medicating with their comforts and their distractions and their busy schedules. The wilderness strips all of that away. It leaves you naked before God and before yourself, and that's terrifying. He stood suddenly, and I scrambled to my feet. The wind picked up, and the temperature dropped another February. I could see my breath now, thick clouds of it, and I wrapped my arms around myself. "Let me show you," Jesus said, and he raised his hand. The darkness around us came alive. I saw them. People. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, appearing like ghosts in the sand around us. They were all in their own wildernesses, their own deserts, but I could see them as clearly as if they were standing right beside me. And above each person, like a caption, I could see what they were facing. The first person I focused on was a woman in her 40s. She was on her knees in the sand, and the word above her head read, pornography. I watched as she wept, as she clawed at the sand, as she screamed into the wind. And then I saw Jesus, not the Jesus standing beside me, but another manifestation of him, kneel beside her in her wilderness. He didn't speak. He just placed his hand on her back. And she collapsed into his arms, sobbing. And I watched as something dark and twisted, some spiritual entity I could barely look at, was pulled out of her chest and cast into the darkness, shrieking as it went. "She's been addicted for 17 years, Jesus said beside me, his voice quiet. "She's tried to quit 100 times. She's prayed. She's fasted. She's gone to counselors and accountability groups. But she's never entered the wilderness with me. She's never let me take her to the place where the root of this thing lies. This Lent, if she accepts the marking, she'll finally be free. But only if she's willing to face it. Only if she's willing to let the wilderness expose it. The scene shifted. Now I saw a man in his 30s standing at the top of a dune, and the word above him read unforgiveness. His face was twisted with rage, and he was shouting at someone I couldn't see, someone from his past. His fists were clenched. His whole body shook. And then Jesus appeared beside him again, a different manifestation, but the same Jesus. And he spoke one word I couldn't hear. And the man crumpled. He fell to his knees and he wept. And I watched as the rage drained out of him like poison being drawn from a wound. His father abused him, Jesus said, 20 years ago. And he's been carrying that rage ever since. It's poisoned his marriage. It's poisoned his relationship with his own children. It's poisoned his relationship with me. But this Lent, if he enters the wilderness, I'm going to heal that wound. I'm going to give him the grace to forgive. But he has to be willing to feel the pain first. He has to be willing to stop running from it. Another shift. A young woman, maybe 25, sitting in the sand with her arms wrapped around her knees. The word above her shame. She was rocking back and forth. And I could hear her whispering, "I'm not enough, I'm not enough." Over and over like a mantra, like a curse. And Jesus sat beside her again. Another manifestation. And he pulled her into his lap like a father with a small child. And he whispered something in her ear. And her eyes went wide and she looked up at him with wonder. And the word above her head changed to beloved. She had an abortion 3 years ago, Jesus said, and his voice broke. And she's been punishing herself ever since. She thinks I'm angry with her. She thinks I've rejected her. She thinks she's disqualified from my love. But this Lent, I'm going to show her the truth. I'm going to show her that my love isn't based on her performance. I'm going to show her that she's mine, that she's always been mine, that nothing can separate her from my love. But she has to enter the wilderness. She has to face the shame instead of hiding from it. The visions kept coming faster now. A teenager struggling with suicidal thoughts. A pastor hiding a gambling addiction. A mother drowning in anxiety. A businessman enslaved to success. A worship leader performing for approval. On and on. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Each one in their own wilderness. Each one facing their own demon. Each one being met by Jesus in the place of their deepest pain. This is what Holy Lent looks like, Jesus said. And he lowered his hand. The visions faded and we were alone again in our circle of light. It's not about giving up coffee, Jonathan. It's about giving up control. It's not about reading your Bible more. It's about letting my word cut you open and expose what's really inside. It's not about fasting from social media. It's about fasting from the false self you've been presenting to the world and finally showing up as who you really are. Broken, desperate, in need of a savior. I was shaking now and not from the cold. How do I tell them this? How do I make them understand? He stepped closer and he placed his hand on my chest, right over my heart. You tell them the truth, Jonathan. You tell them that Holy Lent will cost them everything. You tell them that the wilderness isn't comfortable. You tell them that facing their demons is terrifying. But you also tell them this. His hand pressed harder, and I felt warmth flood through my chest, through my whole body. You tell them that I'll be with them. Every step, every moment, every dark night, they won't face it alone. They'll face it with me. He stepped back, and the wind howled louder, and sand began to whip around us in spirals like small tornadoes forming and dissolving. The stars overhead seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. But they have to choose, Jesus continued, raising his voice over the wind. They have to choose to be marked. They have to choose to enter, because I won't force anyone into the wilderness. I won't drag anyone into transformation. They have to want it. They have to want freedom more than they want comfort. They have to want truth more than they want the illusion of control. What if they're afraid? I shouted over the wind. Then they tell me they're afraid. He shouted back. Fear isn't disqualifying, Jonathan. Fear is honest. I don't need brave people. I need honest people. I need people who will say, Jesus, I'm terrified, but I'm here. I'm terrified, but I'm willing. I'm terrified, but I trust you. That's all I need. That's all I've ever needed. The wind reached a crescendo, and I had to close my eyes against the sand. When I opened them again, Jesus was standing right in front of me, inches away, and the wind had stopped. complete silence, complete stillness. "Tomorrow night," he said quietly, "I'm going to show you what happens to those who refuse the marking. I'm going to show you what happens to those who choose religious Lent over Holy Lent. I'm going to show you the consequences, because this isn't a game. And Jonathan, this isn't optional. This is life and death. This is freedom or bondage. This is transformation or stagnation. I'll be here," I whispered. "I know you will," he said, and he smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from him in both nights. "You've already been marked." You felt it the moment you saw the title of this message. You felt it in your spirit. That restlessness, that holy agitation, that's the marking. That's me calling you into the wilderness. And everyone who's watching this, everyone who's made it this far, they've been marked too. They just have to decide if they're going to answer the call. He placed his hand on my shoulder one more time. "Go home, rest, pray, and come back tomorrow night." Same time, but Jonathan, his expression grew serious again. "Tomorrow night will be harder. Tomorrow night, I'm going to show you things that will break your heart." Are you ready for that? I thought about lying. I thought about saying yes, about being brave, about being strong. But then I remembered what he just said about honesty being more important than bravery. "No," I said, "I'm not ready, but I'll come anyway." His smile returned. That's exactly the right answer, and then he was gone. And I was standing alone in that circular clearing, surrounded by dunes under a sky full of stars that seemed to be watching me, waiting to see what I would do next. I walked back to my car in a daysaze. My legs felt like rubber. My mind was spinning. When I finally got home, the sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and I fell into bed fully clothed and slept for 4 hours. The deepest, most dreamless sleep I've had in years. Now I'm here 12 hours later writing this, trying to find words for what I experienced. And I need you to understand something. I need you to really hear this. What Jesus showed me last night, those people in their wildernesses facing their demons being transformed. That's not just for them. That's for you. That's for everyone who's been marked. You have 11 days now. 11 days until Ash Wednesday. 11 days to decide. Will you enter a holy Lent or will you settle for a religious Lent? Will you face what needs to be faced? Or will you hide behind your fasting rules and your Bible reading plans? I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because I love you. Because Jesus loves you. Because he wants you free more than you want to be free. Because he's willing to meet you in your wilderness, in your darkest place, in your deepest shame, and transform you from the inside out. But you have to choose. You have to say yes. You have to accept the marking. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what's the one thing you're most afraid to face? What's the demon you've been running from? What's the wound you've been hiding? Because that's exactly what Jesus wants to heal this Lent. That's exactly what he wants to expose and transform and redeem. Tomorrow night, I'll share the third encounter, the hardest one, the one that shows what happens when we refuse the marking. The one that shows the consequences of choosing comfort over transformation. But I need you to prepare your heart. I need you to pray. I need you to ask Jesus right now, am I marked? Am I being called into a holy Lent? And if you feel that restlessness, that holy agitation, that sense that something is stirring in your spirit, that's your answer. That's him calling you into the wilderness. Don't ignore it. Don't scroll past it. Don't wait until it's too late. You've been marked. The question is, will you answer the call? I'll see you tomorrow night. Same desert, same time. Harder truths. Get ready. I almost didn't make it to the desert on the third night. Not because I didn't want to go, not because I was afraid. Though God knows I was terrified after what Jesus had told me the night before about what he was going to show me. No, I almost didn't make it because at 11:47 p.m. on February 8th, 2026, I got a phone call that nearly derailed everything. It was my agent. A major streaming platform wanted to meet about a new series, big budget lead role. The kind of opportunity that actors my age, 51, single, no family to support me if the work dries up, don't turn down. The meeting was scheduled for early morning, and my agent was insistent. Jonathan, you need to be sharp for this. Get some sleep. This could change everything. I sat there in my living room, phone in my hand, and I felt it. That pull in two directions. The practical voice saying, be smart. This is your career. This is your future. The desert can wait. And that other voice, that holy agitation, that restlessness that had been building all day, saying, "Go now. This can't wait." I chose the desert. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. Holy Lent will cost you. It will ask you to choose between what makes sense and what's sacred. It will ask you to choose between security and surrender. And if you're not willing to make that choice, if you're not willing to say no to good things in order to say yes to God things, then you're not ready for what Jesus is offering. At 1:53 a.m., I was back on that dirt road, driving deeper into the Mojave than I'd gone before. The temperature had dropped to 32 degrees freezing, and as I drove, I watched ice crystals forming on my windshield, despite the heater running full blast. The sky was different tonight. Clouds had moved in, thick and low, obscuring most of the stars. The darkness was absolute oppressive, and my headlights seemed to barely penetrate it. I drove for 45 minutes before I felt that pull to stop. Not at the same dune as the first night, not at the valley where I'd met him the second night, but at a place I'd never seen before. A flat expanse of desert floor that stretched out like a vast empty stage, surrounded on all sides by distant mountains that were just black silhouettes against the slightly less black sky. When I got out of the car, the wind hit me like a physical force. It was howling, screaming, coming from the north with a ferocity that nearly knocked me off my feet. The cold was brutal, cutting through my jacket, my hoodie, my jeans, straight to my bones. And the sound, God, the sound, it wasn't just wind. It was like voices, thousands of them, wailing and moaning and crying out in agony. I stood there beside my car, shaking, my teeth chattering, and I almost got back in, almost turned around, almost drove home to my warm bed, and my important meeting, and my safe, comfortable life. But then I saw the light, not golden this time, not warm. This light was white, blazing, like lightning that didn't fade. And it was coming from the center of that flat expanse, maybe 200 wide away. And even though every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, I started walking toward it. The wind fought me with every step. Sand and small rocks pelted my face, my hands, any exposed skin. My eyes watered from the cold and the debris, and I had to squint just to see where I was going. The ground beneath my feet was hard-packed and uneven, and twice I stumbled, nearly falling. But I kept walking, kept pushing forward because that light was calling me, pulling me, demanding that I come. When I got within 50 feet, I could see him. Jesus was standing in the center of that light, but he looked different tonight. His robes were whipping in the wind, his hair was wild, and his face was set like flint, hard and determined and terrible in its intensity. This wasn't the weeping Jesus of the first night. This wasn't the teaching Jesus of the second night. This was the Jesus who overturned tables in the temple. This was the Jesus who called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs. This was the Jesus of judgment and justice and holy fire. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice cut through the wind like a sword. "Come closer." I forced myself forward until I was standing just outside that circle of light. The wind was still howling around us, but inside the circle, it was calm. The temperature was still freezing, but the wind couldn't touch us here. "Are you ready to see what I promised to show you?" Jesus asked. "No," I said honestly, my voice shaking. "But show me anyway." He nodded, and something like approval flickered in his eyes. Then he turned away from me, facing out into the darkness, and he raised both hands. "Behold," he said, "the cost of refusal." The darkness exploded with images. I saw them everywhere, projected onto the night itself like some massive cosmic screen. People, millions of them, all observing Lent. But these weren't the people from the second night, the ones entering Holy Lent, the ones facing their demons with Jesus by their side. These were different. These were the ones who had refused the marking, the ones who had chosen religious Lent over Holy Lent, the ones who had settled for performance instead of transformation. The first image that came into focus was a man in his 50s, close to my age, sitting in a church pew. Above his head, the words, "Gave up alcohol for Lent." I watched as he sat through the service, his face set in a mask of piety, his hands folded in his lap. He looked spiritual. He looked devoted. But then the image shifted, and I could see inside him, into his heart, into his spirit. And what I saw there made me gasp. Darkness, thick, oily darkness, writhing like snakes. Unforgiveness toward his ex-wife. bitterness toward his children who had sided with her in the divorce, rage toward God for allowing his life to fall apart, pornography addiction that he'd never confessed to anyone, financial dishonesty that he justified his business, and underneath it all, a deep, aching loneliness that he medicated with work and alcohol and anything else that could numb the pain. He gave up alcohol. Jesus said beside me, his voice heavy with sorrow. For 40 days he'll be sober. He'll feel proud of himself. He'll feel like he's accomplished something. And then on Easter Sunday, he'll have a drink to celebrate. And by Easter Monday, he'll be right back where he started because he never dealt with the root. He never faced the loneliness. He never brought the darkness into the light. He chose religious Lent, and religious Lent can't save him. The image shifted. Now I saw a woman in her 30s kneeling beside her bed, Bible open in front of her, above her head, reading through the Gospels for Lent. She was highlighting verses, taking notes, doing everything right. But again, when the image shifted to show her heart, I saw the same darkness. Anxiety that kept her awake at night. Control issues that were destroying her marriage. Perfectionism that she'd passed on to her children, crushing them under impossible expectations. An eating disorder she'd hidden for 15 years. And underneath it all, a belief that she had to earn God's love, that she had to be perfect to be acceptable, that one mistake would disqualify her from his grace. She's reading my words, Jesus said, but she's not letting my words read her. She's studying the Gospels, but she's not letting the Gospel transform her. She's performing devotion, but she's not experiencing intimacy. And when Lent ends, she'll close her Bible and go right back to her anxiety and her control and her perfectionism. Because she never let me into the places where those things live. She chose religious Lent, and religious Lent can't heal her. More images, faster now, like a flood. A teenager giving up social media, but never dealing with the depression that made him scroll for hours in the first place. A pastor fasting from television, but never confronting the pride that made him need to be the smartest person in every room. A mother volunteering at church, but never addressing the resentment she felt toward her special needs child. A businessman tithing extra, but never facing the greed that drove him to neglect his family. On and on. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them all performing Lent. All doing the right religious things. All looking spiritual from the outside, but all rotting from the inside because they refused to enter the wilderness, refused to face their demons, refused to let Jesus into the dark places. Stop, I said, tears streaming down my face. Please stop. I can't. You have to see this, Jonathan, Jesus said, and his voice was firm but not unkind. You have to see what's at stake. You have to understand why I'm marking souls for Holy Lent. Because religious Lent is killing my people. It's giving them the illusion of progress while they're actually dying inside. It's letting them feel good about themselves while their marriages crumble, and their children walk away from the faith, and their own souls shrivel up and die. He turned to face me fully, and the images faded into darkness. Do you know what the enemy's greatest weapon is, Jonathan? I shook my head, unable to speak. Religion, he said, not atheism, not persecution, not even outright sin. Religion. Because religion lets people feel close to God while keeping them far from Him. Religion lets people feel righteous while they're still enslaved. Religion gives people just enough of me to inoculate them against actually needing me. He stepped closer, and I could see the fire in his eyes now. Literal fire burning, but not consuming. That's what religious Lent does. It gives people just enough discipline to feel good about themselves, just enough sacrifice to feel spiritual, just enough devotion to check the box, but it never brings them into the wilderness where real transformation happens. It never strips them down to nothing, so I can rebuild them into everything. It never exposes the darkness, so I can flood them with light. The wind outside our circle intensified, and I heard those voices again, thousands of them wailing in the darkness. What is that sound? I asked. Those are the souls who refuse the marking, Jesus said quietly. Those are the ones who chose comfort over transformation. Those are the ones who will observe Lent this year and emerge unchanged. And they're crying out because somewhere deep inside they know. They know they're missing something. They know there's more. They know they're settling for crumbs when I'm offering them a feast. But they're too afraid to enter the wilderness. They're too attached to their comforts. They're too invested in their false selves to let me strip them away and reveal their true selves. He raised his hand again, and one final image appeared in the darkness. This one was different. This was a split screen showing the same person in two different timelines. On the left side, I saw a young woman, maybe 28, observing religious Lent. She gave up sweets. She read her Bible every morning. She attended extra church services. She posted about her Lent journey on social media, and people commented about how inspiring she was. Easter came, and she felt accomplished. She felt spiritual. She felt like she'd done well. But then I watched as the months passed, and slowly, gradually she drifted back into the same patterns, the same anxiety, the same people-pleasing, the same fear of man, the same performance-based relationship with God. By summer, she was exhausted. By fall, she was burned out. By Christmas, she was barely hanging on. And when the next Lent rolled around, she did it all again. Same routine, same performance, same lack of transformation. On the right side, I saw the same woman, but this time she had accepted the marking. This time she entered Holy Lent, and what I saw was brutal. I watched as she spent the first week of Lent in her own wilderness, weeping as Jesus exposed her people-pleasing, her fear, her need for approval. I watched as she faced memories she'd been running from: childhood trauma, sexual abuse, words spoken over her that had shaped her identity in twisted ways. I watched as she sat in the darkness with Jesus, letting him pull out the lies, one by one, and replace them with truth. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't Instagram-worthy. There were days she wanted to quit. Days she wanted to run back to her comfortable religious routines. But Jesus stayed with her. He held her when she wept. He spoke truth when she believed lies. He fought her demons when she was too weak to fight them herself. And when Easter came, she was different. Not perfect, not finished, but transformed. The anxiety was gone. Not managed, but actually gone. The people-pleasing had been replaced with a healthy sense of identity. The fear of man had been replaced with the fear of God. And as I watched the months pass in this timeline, she didn't drift back. She didn't burn out. She didn't barely hang on, she thrived. She grew. She became more fully herself, more fully alive, more fully free with each passing month. Because Holy Lent had done what religious Lent never could. It had actually changed her. That's the difference, Jesus said as the image faded. That's what's at stake. That's why I'm marking souls. Because I'm tired of watching my people settle for religion when I'm offering them relationship. I'm tired of watching them perform devotion when I'm offering them transformation. I'm tired of watching them observe Lent without ever actually entering it. He placed both hands on my shoulders, and the warmth of his touch cut through the freezing air. Jonathan, you have 9 days left to warn them. 9 days until Ash Wednesday. 9 days to tell them that they have a choice. Will they enter Holy Lent, or will they settle for religious Lent? Will they face their demons, or will they hide behind their fasting rules? Will they let me strip them down and rebuild them, or will they just try to improve themselves through discipline? How do I make them understand? I asked, my voice breaking. How do I make them see that this is life or death? You tell them the truth, he said. You tell them that religious Lent will leave them exactly where they are. You tell them that Holy Lent will cost them everything, but give them everything. You tell them that the wilderness is terrifying, but that I'll be with them every step. You tell them that transformation is painful, but that staying the same is more painful. You tell them that they've been marked, and that this is their moment, and that if they refuse it, they'll spend the rest of their lives wondering what could have been. The wind died suddenly, and the temperature began to rise. The clouds overhead started to break apart, and I could see stars appearing in the gaps. And on the eastern horizon, the first hint of dawn was beginning to gray the sky. Tomorrow night, Jesus said, I'm going to give you the practical steps. I'm going to show you exactly how to enter Holy Lent. I'm going to give you the tools, the framework, the daily practice. But tonight, I needed you to see the stakes. I needed you to understand what happens when people refuse the marking. Because you can't call people into something without showing them what they're being called out of. He stepped back and the light around him began to fade. Go home, Jonathan. Rest, prepare, and tomorrow night come back one final time, same desert, but tomorrow we'll meet at sunrise 6:47 a.m. Because what I'm going to give you tomorrow needs to be received in the light, not the darkness. It needs to be received at the beginning of a new day, and not the end of an old one. I'll be here, I said. I know you will, he said. And then he smiled. That same smile from the second night, full of warmth and approval and love. You've been faithful, Jonathan. You've shown up even when you were afraid. You've listened even when it was hard. You've been willing to see what others refused to see. That's why you were marked. That's why you were chosen for this. And then he was gone. And I was standing alone on that flat expanse of desert floor as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange and gold. And I fell to my knees and wept for the people who would refuse the marking, for the people who would settle for religious Lent, for the people who would miss their moment of transformation because they were too afraid to enter the wilderness. I'm home now. It's been 8 hours since that encounter. I haven't slept. I can't sleep because I keep seeing those images, those split-screen timelines, that young woman in 2 different futures. And I keep thinking, how many people watching this right now are standing at that same crossroads? How many of you are about to choose between religious Lent and holy Lent? How many of you are about to decide whether you'll face your demons or hide from them? Listen to me, please. I'm begging you. Don't settle for religious Lent. Don't give up chocolate and call it transformation. Don't read your Bible more and think that's enough. Don't fast from social media and believe you've entered the wilderness. Those things aren't bad. They're just not enough. They're not what Jesus is offering you. He's offering you freedom, real freedom. Not managed sin, but actual deliverance. Not improved behavior, but transformed identity. Not a better version of your false self, but the emergence of your true self. But you have to be willing to enter the wilderness. You have to be willing to face what's really there. You have to be willing to let him strip away everything false so he can reveal everything true. Drop a comment right now and tell me, are you willing? Are you willing to enter Holy Lent even though it's terrifying? Are you willing to face your demons even though it's painful? Are you willing to let Jesus into the dark places, even though you've been hiding them for years? Because tomorrow, the final part of this testimony, I'm going to give you the practical steps. I'm going to show you exactly how to enter Holy Lent. I'm going to give you the 30-minute daily practice that Jesus gave me. I'm going to give you the framework, the tools, the specific actions you need to take. But I need you to decide right now. Are you in? Are you marked? Are you willing to answer the call? You have 9 days left. 9 days until Ash Wednesday. 9 days to prepare your heart for the most transformative Lent of your life. Don't waste them. Don't ignore this. Don't scroll past. Tomorrow, sunrise encounter, final revelations, practical steps, everything you need to enter Holy Lent. Be ready. I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. on February 9th, 2026, but I didn't need it. I was already awake. I've been awake since 3:00 a.m., lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I'd seen over the past 3 nights. The weeping Jesus of the first night, the teaching Jesus of the second night, the fierce Jesus of the third night. And now, in just over an hour, I would meet him one final time at sunrise. I made coffee. I showered. I dressed in layers because I knew the desert would be cold before the sun fully rose. And at 5:47 a.m., exactly 1 hour before the appointed time, I was in my car driving east into a darkness that was already beginning to fade at the edges. The drive felt different this time. Purposeful, final, like I was heading toward a commissioning, not just another encounter. The highway was empty except for a few early morning commuters. And as I drove, I prayed. Not eloquent prayers, not theological prayers, just honest prayers. Jesus, help me receive what you want to give me. Help me remember everything. Help me communicate it clearly. Help me be faithful to what you've shown me. I arrived at the desert at 6:32. Not at the dune from the first night. Not at the valley from the second night. Not at the flat expanse from the third night. But at a place I'd never been before. A rocky outcropping that rose up from the desert floor like a natural altar, maybe 35 high, with a flat top that overlooked miles and miles of wilderness in every direction. I parked at the base and began to climb. The rocks were rough under my hands, still cold from the night, and I had to be careful with my footing. But the climb wasn't difficult, and within 5 minutes, I was standing on top of that outcropping, looking out over a landscape that was just beginning to emerge from darkness. The sky was incredible. Behind me to the west, it was still deep blue, almost black, with a few stubborn stars still visible. But to the east, it was transforming, layers of color stacked on top of each other like a painting. Deep purple at the horizon, then pink, then orange, then gold, then that electric blue that only exists for a few minutes at dawn. The air was crisp and cold, maybe 35 degrees and perfectly still. No wind, no sound, just silence and waiting. I stood there watching the sky change, watching the light grow. And at exactly 6:47 a.m., the sun broke over the eastern horizon. And he was there. Jesus was standing at the edge of the outcropping, silhouetted against the rising sun. His arms spread wide like he was embracing the dawn. The light behind him was so bright I had to squint. And for a moment he looked like pure light himself, like the sun was shining through him instead of behind him. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice was different this morning. Not sorrowful like the first night, not teaching like the second night, not fierce like the third night, but joyful, triumphant, full of hope and anticipation. "Welcome to the fourth day. Welcome to the day of commissioning." He turned to face me, and I could see him clearly now. His face was radiant, glowing with an inner light that had nothing to do with the sunrise. His eyes were bright and clear and full of love, and he was smiling. Not the small smile from the second night, but a full, brilliant smile that made my heart leap in my chest. "Come here," he said, gesturing to the spot beside him at the edge of the outcropping. "Stand with me and look at what I'm about to do." I moved to his side, and together we looked out over the desert as the sun continued to rise, flooding the landscape with golden light. The shadows retreated. The colors intensified. The whole world seemed to wake up and come alive. "Do you see it?" Jesus asked. "See what the wilderness," he said. "Look at it, Jonathan. Really look at it. What do you see?" I looked. Miles of sand and rock and scrub brush, dunes and valleys and distant mountains. Harsh, unforgiving, beautiful in its own way, but brutal. "I see emptiness," I said. "Desolation, a hard place." "Look again," he said. "Look with spiritual eyes." And then my vision shifted just like it had on the previous nights. And suddenly I could see what he was seeing. The desert wasn't empty. It was full of people, millions of them. All the marked ones. All the souls who had been called into Holy Lent. They were standing in the wilderness, waiting, ready, their faces turned toward the sunrise, toward him, toward the transformation that was coming. "These are mine," Jesus said, and his voice was thick with emotion. "These are the ones who said yes. These are the ones who accepted the marking. These are the ones who chose Holy Lent over religious Lent. These are the ones who are willing to face their demons, willing to enter the wilderness, willing to let me strip away everything false so I can reveal everything true." I could see them so clearly, young and old, rich and poor. Every ethnicity, every background, every denomination. Some were weeping, some were worshiping, some were standing in silence with their hands raised. But they were all there, all waiting, all ready. In 8 days, Jesus continued, Ash Wednesday will come, and these souls, these marked ones, they're going to begin a journey that will change their lives forever. But they need to know how. They need to know what to do. They need practical steps, not just spiritual concepts. That's why I've brought you here this morning, Jonathan. That's why I've shown you everything over these past 3 nights. Because now I'm going to give you the framework. Now I'm going to give you the 30-minute daily practice that will guide them through Holy Lent. And you're going to take it to them. He turned to face me fully, and he placed both hands on my shoulders. "Are you ready to receive this?" "Yes," I said, and I meant it with everything in me. "Then listen carefully," he said, "because this is the key. This is how they enter Holy Lent. This is how they move from religious performance to spiritual transformation." The sun was fully above the horizon now, and the desert was bathed in golden light. Jesus released my shoulders and began to walk slowly around the top of the outcropping. And I followed, listening as he spoke. "Holy Lent is built on 3 movements," he began. 3 daily movements that take 30 minutes total. Not complicated, not impossible, but absolutely essential. The The first movement is exposure. The second movement is encounter. The third movement is empowerment. Exposure, encounter, empowerment. Every day for 40 days, 30 minutes. That's all I'm asking. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Let me break it down for you. Let me show you exactly what this looks like. The first movement, exposure, takes 10 minutes. This is where they come before me in complete honesty and ask me to expose what needs to be exposed. Not what they think needs to be fixed. Not what their pastor told them to work on. Not what their spouse complains about, but what I want to expose. What I want to bring into the light. What I want to heal. He gestured out over the desert, and I saw one of the marked ones, a middle-aged man, kneeling in the sand. "Watch," Jesus said. I watched as the man closed his eyes and began to pray. Jesus, expose what needs to be exposed. Show me what you want to heal. Bring into the light what I've been hiding in darkness. And as he prayed, I saw Jesus kneel beside him, and I saw Jesus place his hand on the man's chest. And I saw something rise up from inside the man, a memory, a wound, a lie he'd believed about himself. And it hung in the air between them like smoke, visible and tangible. That's exposure, Jesus said beside me. That's the first 10 minutes they come before me. They ask me to expose what needs to be exposed, and they sit in silence and let me show them. Sometimes it will be a memory. Sometimes it will be a sin pattern. Sometimes it will be a lie they believed. Sometimes it will be a wound they've been carrying. But every day I will expose something. Every day I will bring something into the light. And their job is simply to receive it, to acknowledge it, to not run from it. The scene faded and Jesus continued walking. The second movement, encounter, takes 10 minutes. This is where they bring what I've exposed into my presence and let me speak truth over it. This is where they encounter my love, my grace, my healing, my deliverance. This is where transformation actually happens. He gestured again and I saw a young woman sitting in the sand weeping. In front of her, visible in the spiritual realm, was a dark, twisted thing. Shame, I realized, thick and oily and suffocating. And Jesus was there with her, and he was speaking to her. And with each word he spoke, the shame began to dissolve, to break apart, to lose its power. And in its place, light began to grow. Golden, warm, healing light that filled the space where the shame had been. That's encounter, Jesus said. That's the second 10 minutes. They take what I've exposed and they bring it to me, and they let me speak truth over it. If I've exposed a lie, they let me replace it with truth. If I've exposed a wound, they let me heal it. If I've exposed a sin, they let me deliver them from it. If I've exposed shame, they let me cover them with my love. This is where they encounter me. Not as a concept, not as a doctrine, but as a living, present, active Savior who is doing real work in real time. The scene faded again and Jesus stopped walking. We were back at the edge of the outcropping, looking out over the desert as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The third movement, empowerment, takes 10 minutes. This is where they receive their marching orders for the day. This is where they ask me, what do you want me to do with what you've shown me? How do you want me to walk this out today? And I give them specific, practical instructions. One more time, he gestured and I saw a teenager standing in the desert, and Jesus was standing in front of him speaking. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the teenager nodding, understanding, receiving. And then the teenager turned and began to walk, and I could see that he was different. His posture was different. His countenance was different. He was walking in freedom and authority and purpose. That's empowerment, Jesus said. That's the final 10 minutes. They ask me what to do, and I tell them. Sometimes it will be to confess something to someone. Sometimes it will be to forgive someone. Sometimes it will be to set a boundary. Sometimes it will be to break an agreement with a lie. Sometimes it will be to step into something new. But every day I will give them specific instructions. And their job is to obey, to actually do what I tell them to do, because transformation without obedience is just information. He turned to face me and his expression was intense, urgent. Do you understand, Jonathan? Do you see how simple this is? 30 minutes a day, 10 minutes of exposure, 10 minutes of encounter, 10 minutes of empowerment. That's Holy Lent. That's how they enter the wilderness with me. That's how they move from religious performance to spiritual transformation. But what if they don't hear you? I ask. What if they sit in silence and nothing happens? What if they don't see anything or feel anything? Jesus smiled. Then they trust that I'm working even when they can't see it. They trust that exposure is happening, even when they're not aware of it. They trust that I'm faithful even when they feel nothing. Because this isn't about feelings, Jonathan. This isn't about having mystical experiences every day. This is about showing up. This is about being faithful. This is about saying, Jesus, I'm here. I'm available. I'm willing. Do your work in me whether I feel it or not. He placed his hand on my chest right over my heart. And here's what I promised them. If they do this, if they show up every day for 30 minutes, if they move through exposure and encounter and empowerment, if they're faithful for all 40 days, they will not emerge from this Lent the same as they entered it. I promise them transformation. I promise them freedom. I promise them breakthrough. I promise them that the demons they've been fighting for years will be defeated. I promise them that the wounds they've been carrying will be healed. I promise them that the lies they believed will be replaced with truth. I promise them that they will know me in a way they've never known me before. Tears were streaming down my face now. How do I tell them this? How do I make them understand? You tell them exactly what I've told you, he said. You give them the framework. You give them the 3 movements. You tell them it's 30 minutes a day. You tell them it's simple, but not easy. You tell them it will cost them everything, but give them everything. You tell them that I'm marking souls for Holy Lent, and that if they're seeing this message, they're one of the marked ones, and that they had 8 days left to prepare. He stepped back and the light around him intensified. And you tell them this, Jonathan. You tell them that this isn't just about Lent. This is about the rest of their lives, because the practice I'm giving them, exposure, encounter, empowerment, this isn't just for 40 days. This is a lifestyle. This is how they walk with me every day for the rest of their lives. Lent is just the training ground. Lent is just where they learn the practice. But once they learn it, once they experience the power of it, they'll never want to go back to religious Christianity again. They'll never be satisfied with performance and discipline and trying harder. They'll have tasted transformation, and transformation is addictive in the best possible way. The sun was high enough now that the desert was fully illuminated, and I could see for miles in every direction. The landscape that had looked harsh and desolate in the darkness was revealed to be beautiful in the light, full of color and texture and life. This is what Holy Lent does, Jesus said, gesturing out over the desert. It takes what looks dead and reveals that it's actually alive. It takes what looks empty and reveals that it's actually full. It takes what looks harsh and reveals that it's actually beautiful. Because the wilderness isn't meant to kill you, Jonathan, it's meant to reveal you. It's meant to strip away everything false so that everything true can emerge. He walked to the very edge of the outcropping and looked out over the marked ones who were still standing in the desert below, waiting ready. Go to them, he said. Tell them what I've shown you. Give them the framework. Call them into Holy Lent and tell them that I'm waiting for them in the wilderness. Tell them that I'll be with them every step. Tell them that they're not alone. Tell them that this is their moment, and that if they say yes, their lives will never be the same. What about after Lent? I asked. What about day 41? What happens then? Jesus turned back to me and his smile was radiant. Then they keep going. Then they take the practice into their everyday lives. Then they continue to let me expose, encounter, and empower them every single day. Because, Jonathan, I'm not just offering them a better Lent. I'm offering them a better life. I'm offering them a life of ongoing transformation, ongoing freedom, ongoing intimacy with me. Lent is just the beginning. He walked back to me and placed both hands on my shoulders. One final time. You've been faithful, Jonathan. You've shown up every night. You've listened. You've received. You've been willing to see what others refuse to see. Now go and tell them. You have 8 days until Ash Wednesday. 8 days to prepare the marked ones for Holy Lent. I will, I said. I promise. I know you will, he said, because you're marked too. You're one of them. And this Lent, you're going to experience transformation alongside them. You're going to enter the wilderness with them. You're going to face your own demons and receive your own healing and walk in your own freedom. You're not just a messenger, Jonathan. You're a participant. And then, just like the previous nights, he was gone. But this time, I didn't feel alone, because as I stood there on top of that outcropping, looking out over the desert in the full light of day, I could still see them, the marked ones, the millions of souls who were being called into Holy Lent. And I knew that I was one of them, and that we were all in this together. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts, just silence and reflection and prayer. When I got home, I sat down and wrote everything out. The 3 movements, the 30-minute practice, the promises Jesus made, the warnings he gave. And now I'm here sharing it with you, 8 days before Ash Wednesday. 8 days before the beginning of the most transformative Lent of your life. Let me give you the practical framework one more time, clearly and simply. The Holy Lent practice 30 minutes daily movement. 1 exposure, 10 minutes, find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Come before Jesus in complete honesty. Pray, Jesus, expose what needs to be exposed. Show me what you want to heal, bring into the light. What I've been hiding in darkness, sit in silence and wait. Whatever he shows you a memory, a sin pattern, a word, write it down. Don't run from it. Don't minimize it. Don't explain it away. Just acknowledge it. Movement 2, encounter 10 minutes. Take what he exposed and bring it into his presence. Ask him, what is the truth about this? What do you want to say to me about this? Listen for his voice. It might come as scripture, as an impression, as a sense of his presence. Let him speak truth over the lie, healing over the wound, deliverance over the sin. Receive his love, his grace, his power. Thank him for what he's doing, even if you can't fully see it yet. Movement 3, empowerment. 10 minutes. Ask him, what do you want me to do with what you've shown me? How do you want me to walk this out today? Listen for specific instructions. Confess to someone. Forgive someone. Set a boundary. Break an agreement with a lie. Step into something new. Write down what he tells you. Commit to obeying even if it's hard. Even if it's scary, ask him for the grace and strength to do what he's asking. Step into your day with confidence that he's with you. That's it. That's the practice. 30 minutes a day for 40 days. Simple, but not easy. Doable, but not comfortable. Transformative, but costly. And here's what I need you to do right now. First, drop a comment and tell me you're in. Tell me you're accepting the marking. Tell me you're committing to Holy Lent, because there's power in declaration. There's power in making your commitment public. There's power in saying out loud, I'm one of the marked ones and I'm saying yes. Second, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Because over the next 8 days leading up to Ash Wednesday, I'm going to be posting daily encouragements, daily reminders, daily teachings to help you prepare. And then during Lent itself, I'm going to be walking through this practice with you, sharing my own journey, creating a community of marked ones who are supporting each other through the wilderness. Third, share this message. Share it with everyone you know who needs to hear it. Because I guarantee you, there are marked ones in your life who don't know they're marked yet. There are people in your sphere of influence who are desperate for transformation, but don't know how to find it. There are souls who are about to settle for religious Lent, when Jesus is offering them Holy Lent. Share this message and give them the chance to say yes. Fourth, start preparing now. Don't wait until Ash Wednesday. Start practicing the 30-minute daily rhythm now. Start asking Jesus to expose what needs to be exposed. Start letting him encounter you with his truth. Start receiving his empowerment for each day, because the more you practice now, the more natural it will be when Lent officially begins. Fifth, mark your calendar. Ash Wednesday is February 18th, 2026. That's 8 days from now. 8 days to prepare. 8 days to get your heart ready. 8 days to clear your schedule and make space for this 30-minute daily practice. Don't let Lent sneak up on you. Don't let it catch you unprepared. You've been marked, you've been called. Now get ready. Listen to me. I need you to really hear this. What Jesus showed me over these 4 nights in the desert. This isn't just another spiritual teaching. This isn't just another Christian self-help program. This isn't just another way to make Lent more meaningful. This is a divine invitation into transformation. This is Jesus himself calling you into the wilderness to strip away everything false and reveal everything true. This is your moment. This is your chance. This is your Holy Lent. But you have to choose it. You have to say yes. You have to commit because Jesus won't force you into the wilderness. He won't drag you into transformation. He'll invite you. He'll mark you. He'll call you, but you have to answer. You have to show up. You have to be willing. I'm going to be honest with you about something. I'm terrified. I'm 51 years old. I'm single. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife to support me through this. And I'm about to enter the most intense spiritual season of my life. I don't know what Jesus is going to expose in me. I don't know what demons I'm going to have to face. I don't know what wounds he's going to heal or what lies he's going to replace with truth. But I'm saying yes anyway. I'm committing anyway. I'm stepping into Holy Land anyway because I'm tired of religious Christianity. I'm tired of performance. I'm tired of trying harder and getting nowhere. I want transformation. I want freedom. I want to know Jesus in a way I've never known him before. And I think you want that too. I think that's why you're still here, still reading, still listening. I think you're marked. I think you've been called. I think this is your moment. So, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to scroll past and forget about this in an hour? Or are you going to think that's nice and then go back to planning your religious Lent, where you give up coffee and read your Bible more? Are you going to let fear keep you from the transformation Jesus is offering? Or are you going to say yes? Are you going to accept the marking? Are you going to commit to 30 minutes a day for 40 days? Are you going to enter the wilderness with Jesus and let him do the deep work that needs to be done? The choice is yours. But I'm telling you, I'm begging you, don't miss this. Don't settle for religious Lent when Jesus is offering you Holy Lent. Don't settle for performance when he's offering you transformation. Don't settle for trying harder when he's offering you actual freedom. You've been marked. You didn't stumble onto this message by accident. You didn't randomly watch this video. You're here because Jesus called you here. You're here because he's inviting you into Holy Lent. You're here because this is your moment. 8 days left. 8 days until Ash Wednesday. 8 days to prepare for the most transformative 40 days of your life. I'll be in the wilderness. I'll be doing the practice. I'll be facing my demons and receiving my healing and walking in my freedom. And I pray that you'll be there too. That we'll be in this together. That will be a community of marked ones, supporting each other, encouraging each other, reminding each other that we're not alone. That Jesus is with us. That transformation is possible. Drop that comment right now. Tell me you're in. Tell me you're marked. Tell me you're saying yes to Holy Lent. And then get ready because everything is about to change. You've been marked. Don't ignore this. Don't scroll past. Don't wait. This is your moment.